Hi, welcome everyone to PopCultX episode 85. Once again, Gabriel and Danny back to bring you all the news on pop culture, comic books, art, music, everything that we like, and some of the stuff that we don't like. So once again, welcome very much. Danny, how have you been? It's been 1 week since we last pop-culted.
Pop-culted. It's a new verb for everyone out there. Yeah, I like that. What did you do this week? Oh, I pop-culted. Yeah. Not much. I really was watching a lot of stand-up comedians this past week. I really enjoyed hearing a comedian by the name of Jo Koy. He's a Filipino American, and he's just hilarious. He has a new, I don't know if it's new, but it came out in 2022 on Netflix, and it was just funny. And he takes some time in that stand-up to talk about how people of color need to have their voice heard. And he spends a good 5 to 10 minutes on that topic. And I thought that was really interesting in his special, that he's using that platform to kind of give a voice and amplify that. So I thought that was really cool. He's just hilarious. Some of his older specials are also on Netflix, and it's just funny. It's been a joy to watch Jo Koy perform.
Yeah. One of my friends, Melanie, is actually a really big fan of his, and I think has actually become friends with him in a sense.
Oh, nice.
She's seen so many shows and meets him at every event that she is able to go to his or he's performing. So I sort of know him, through her.
Get him on the show then. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know if he's that close of a friend to her or not, but yeah, I definitely will try. Speaking of comedians, and my name twin, Gabriel Iglesias, was in the news recently because he spent, I believe, 6 figures on a quinceañera, or sweet 15, 16 birthday party for his Chihuahua. And there were people that are in 2 different camps. There were some people that were like, yeah, I love my dog. If I had that much money, I would throw them a party. And then there were people that are like, oh, that's disgusting. There's so many homeless people and people that are starving that you could be feeding them. I was in the camp of, I would do that for my dogs if I could afford it. I pretty much, we do spend a lot of money on our dogs.
Yeah, we do.
We are very spoiled. It's his money. It's
exactly. That's what I was thinking.
It was a party, and I'm sure that it was, the people were enjoying the party. So it's not like it was necessarily specifically for the dog. A lot of people had some enjoyment, and he was entertaining. So why the hell not? He earned the money. Yeah. So I think that was kind of cool.
He went and spent $44 billion on a social media platform, right? So.
Zing.
Ooh, he got you, Musk. Who then, also speaking of comedians, I just saw, I guess today or yesterday, it was released that he went on stage with Dave Chappelle, I guess at some show in San Francisco, and was booed off the stage. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I feel like his fans are slowly waking up to maybe that he's not the weirdo that they thought he was. But obviously it's still in development. We'll see how it ends. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I deleted my Twitter. I'm still surviving on Instagram through, my social media and whatnot. So, but as far as movies and pop culture stuff, I saw a really cool movie last night that is based off of a short story by Stephen King. Of course, because I'm old, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it's on Netflix, and I think it's like Mr. So-and-so and
Mr. Harrigan's Phone.
Yes. Did you
finally watch it? You watched it? Yeah, I mentioned it a couple episodes ago. It's really good. I liked it.
Yeah, it is really good. So for those of the people who haven't seen it, it's based off of a short story by Stephen King, who is horror god, novelist, storyteller. And it's about this young boy who gets hired by a billionaire to read him books and sort of entertain him. And they become great friends. Years later, he passes away and crazy stuff starts to ensue. Really good. I really enjoyed it. It definitely gave me a little bit of Mr. Burns, Bart Simpson's vibes. Yeah. There's an actual episode of where Mr. Burns realizes that he doesn't have anyone to kind of pick up the mantle for him. So then he gets Bart Simpson to be his protege. and then it doesn't work out. But it kind of reminded me of that a bit. But it was really cool. Donald Sutherland plays the older man, and he's just a brilliant actor.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything he's ever done that he just doesn't make better by being in it. He's an amazing actor, and just the feeling of the movie. Obviously, like I can relate to it, like not being the most popular person in high school, so it was really cool. I really liked it. I thought it was a good little movie or series, and it wasn't a series, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a movie because it seemed like it was a little short.
It was a shorter film, but I would call it a movie. Yeah, definitely.
But it was really good. I really enjoyed it. There aren't any it's not super scary or horrific or horror. It's more in like the realm of like suspense maybe, or just kind of like an eerie vibe.
Eerie vibe, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you're going to love this little transition I'm about to do right now for you. All so right. The actress who played his teacher, the boy's teacher, Mrs. Hart, her name is Kirby Howe Baptiste. And I thought if Nita Hawes Nightmare Blog ever gets made into a film or a series, she would be perfect for the lead character of Nita Hawes. She had that whole vibe already there. And I mentioned that only because last week we teased you guys on a special guest interview. And that is going to be, we'll announce it now, it's Shawn Alexander, who is the artist and creator, along with Rodney Barnes, of Killadelphia and Nita Hawes Nightmare Blog. So look at that transition. How about that? I got to pat myself on the back for that one. So, well, let's go ahead. You know what? Let's just play that interview, the conversation we just had with Jason right now for everyone.
Let's check it out.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Little Talks with PopCultX. It's our conversation series where we chat with a wide variety of creative people. Today, we're fortunate enough to be joined by a fantastic creative comic book artist and fine artist as well, Shawn Alexander. So, Jason, welcome to PopCultX.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, I was reading your bio on your website, and you've been in the field for about 20 years now, and you're a multiple Eisner nominated for Killadelphia, which also spun off to Nita Hawes Nightmare Blog, and now the forthcoming anticipated Blacula reimagination with Zombie Love Studio. Now, I'm super excited for that. I've seen some of your cover art that you've shared. So I guess let's start from the beginning. What really drew you into comic books, or where did it begin? Was it fine art first or comic books first?
Comics first. As far as like true interest, it was horror movies, and I really wanted to kind of get into special effects and makeup. And so like my high school, I spent my time like idolizing guys like Dick Smith and Tom Savini and all of these makeup guys. And then McFarlane's Spider-Man came out, and I had started, my older brother, I kind of would get comics from him every once in a while. But I remember I was collecting Wolverine and things like that. But then when McFarlane hit, it not only blew me away, but I knew immediately I wanted to draw comics.
Oh, nice.
My dad, is an amateur artist, and I was brought up with it, and I always loved making art. And when I saw what McFarlane was doing and with the storytelling and all of that, I was like, I think this avenue, and I grabbed onto it, and I never let go.
Right on. I mean, I've always enjoyed comic books, but I haven't really invested in it, I guess, too recently. So one of the things that really drew me onto your artwork was one of the variant covers for Nita Hawes Nightmare Blog. I think it was issue 5, where you see her traveling with all her gear on her back. Yeah. And that just was like, I want to know who this person is, where she's going, what is she doing with all that? Because it has like a keyboard, it has everything, and it just was like so super fantastic. So that's what really drew me into that comic book, to you guys' artwork there. So thank you for that.
Oh, awesome. Thanks to Norman Rockwell. That
exactly.
For a series of homage covers, and it seemed perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you, if you're, how you got into writing as well, because you're a writer as well. Not only are you a visual storyteller, but you also do some storytelling as well. How did that come about?
That came about at the beginning because after my infatuation with McFarlane's style, he was the first artist I really aped and tried to emulate. Mm-hmm. Then when I was, then I saw The Crow. And then The Crow is the thing that introduced me to black and white independent comics. And that changed everything. That changed my entire direction. I no longer wanted to draw superheroes and all stuff. So everything I wanted to be dark and all that. And so, I was in doing that, I was getting nowhere. And as long as my friends, who had like an early manga style I would say around 93. And so we were just getting nowhere submitting our work. And so we're like, well, we got to just do our own. So we started self-publishing. We got a few friends together, started self-publishing an anthology. Oh, cool. And I was just so obsessed with this kind of Gothic-ness of The Crow and all that. Like I just started writing little short stories, and it kind of took off from there. And inevitably Empty Zone, which is my creator-owned book that I do for Image as well, was one of those short stories. Oh, and it just wound up being, at that time, it was so amazing. Like I was discovering art writers like William Gibson and then also things like Sin City had just started coming out. And I was seeing this noir narration done so beautifully. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just want to make comics. And I was just like, I can do this myself. So it's just been my bullheadedness and wanting to tell. I've really only written Empty Zone. And so I've done several iterations through different companies, but it's been the story that I've been trying to tell for like 20 years now.
Nice. I'm curious, when it comes to your inspiration, does it come in the shape of the visuals first or the story, and then you create the visuals? What's your process like?
Visuals for me, pictures worth 1,000 words. Like those are the things that drive me to want, like, the words need to inspire images. Like I need to want to draw this stuff. It's got to be interesting on that level. But even though images are the first thing that kind of strike me, I find that like when I go running and all that other stuff in the morning, I'm flooded by story ideas. And it's just, I don't know where they come from. I get very excited when they come in. There's a lot of them that fall to the wayside, but but when I see these story ideas, I never want to go off and write a novel. Like I see them automatically in panel form and graphic novels and all of that. And, even though I do fine art and I've exhibited all over and all of that, there's something that grabbed me with those books like The Crow and things like that just made me fall in love with sequential storytelling. Like, I just don't think there's anything better. So, I get told, like, dude, you exhibit in galleries. Why the hell are you going to come back to comics? These are naysayers. And they just don't, there's a magic to it, man. I truly love it. I love telling, even with my paintings, they're more narrative in nature, just because I don't want to just do guys sitting on chair. Like I want to see an emotion in his face. I want to play with lighting. I want you to wonder why he's in that chair, not just, oh, structurally it's beautiful. I don't care. I want you to feel something. Yeah. And so that just translates, or that just came from being genuinely emotionally moved. I keep referencing The Crow because that was the first time I was like affected. Like I teared up reading a comic and I'm like, I didn't know this was possible. I thought comics were just badass. And then I was, so that introduced me to Will Eisner's work. And then I was just floored that you could tell real human stories. And I was like, this is what I want to be a part of. That's why I love Rodney so much. Like, it's Killadelphia is such a human story.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to get to next, was your collaboration with Rodney. We had Rodney on the show a couple months ago, I think. And it was just fascinating to hear his side from the written part of it. So I'm just imagining he sends you his script, right? Or his I guess his work up, his pages. How do you take that? What is like your process when you get his words to visualize that into what we see?
We'll get on the phone and he'll tell me what he's got planned 2 arcs down the line.
Okay.
And then it's fantastic. And like, in that point, it's kind of fun, because then if I have ideas or suggestions, I throw them out at that stage and then see if they get ground up and then spit out through the rod. And so, but then, yeah, the scripts come, and that's what I tell people, I genuinely get to be a fan, because I love his writing so much that I have that moment where I get to just, read the script myself.
Right.
And it's the only time I'm ever going to get surprised by what happens. So I'm like, I make the most of it. And then I'm, blown away. I'm just, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. And then I immediately go to page 1 layouts. Because it's just fresh and I'm visualizing the whole scene. And that's one of the things I love about working with Rodney, is that I can see his words so clearly in my head. Other writers, I feel like I'm trying to maybe improve on or make more cool the images. But I find with Rodney, it's genuinely me trying to match the words. I love the specificity of his scripts, so I can make people genuinely doing facial expressions that match certain parts. Like, but they're so moody, and I really want to live up to everything that when I first read that script, I see it like a movie. And so my goal from that point is to try to help you guys see it like a movie. And luckily, like I said, his words just kind of work for me. Like his the pacing, the descriptions, I see it, and I dig working with him.
I'm curious, how did you guys get to that point? How do you develop that type of relationship where there's, that synchronicity between the writer and the artist? Did you have to work at that? Did you guys like hang out and like vibe off of each other? Or is that just part of the magic that you hooked up with someone that you so easily connected with?
Flip it. In that Ronnie and I we definitely work together so well, but it's that creative passion and that kind of imagery that never needed to have any level of warm up. And we needed that because we're like an old married couple. And especially at the beginning, like we would just butt heads. They would be weeks apart from talking to each other. We would just piss each other off. And it kind of was just a consistent. I'm just like, he said this to me numerous times. He's just like, every time I'm mad at you, then you turn in a page. And then I'm just like, oh, I can't be mad. It's beautiful. And I'm the same way. I'm just like, and then I get a script and I'm like, but it's brilliant. And so much the creative side, like I tend to blame it that we share the same birthday. So I'm like, we're linked in. So I think, so creatively, we're there. And thank God, because we would have killed each other otherwise.
I'm curious, when it comes to character design or creation, do you ever base it off of someone that you come across in life and you're like, I just really dig the way that person looks and their vibe. Like, I want to integrate them somehow, somewhere into my work. And you kind of put that in your catalog. And then when the right character comes up, you're like, yep, I know exactly who that person is. Or is there or is it like completely like on the spot, like, oh yeah, she's got long hair, she wears glasses, like this is the kind of person that the writer is telling you who they are?
I especially when starting a new character, a new script, I absolutely go like that way. I imagine her first, I then start doing a model search and that type of thing. Oftentimes, especially with the schedule that we've kept with Killadelphia, I prefer to shoot all the reference myself, but oftentimes I jump to like I have to jump to like the stock stuff here and there. But inevitably I have a face model, for whoever I want to, that's kind of unique. But it's really, I'm trying to match whatever I read, like however I see them. Like, I mean, and then because I shoot models for everything, I love basing the work in reality. So you kind of have that kind of believability with the crazy. But and so especially with Killadelphia, I was fortunate. I live in LA. My wife's an actor. Her friends are actors, and so you could just get linked up with people. Mm-hmm. And so there's the actor Phil Morris was kind enough to pose for Sangster for the comic. And so if you guys don't know him, Google him. Phil Morris is a genius, and he's brilliant, and he just loved posing for Sangster. So it was just cool to have somebody that has his level of resume just rocking vampire stuff with me. It was neat. He's just such a huge comic. I keep finding all of these like Hollywood comic book fans. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And I would say linking the Hollywood with your artwork, the scope, it is very cinematic, your art style, especially with Killadelphia and Nita Hawes. Can we expect more of the same in Blacula with that whole cinematic, a lot of dark, empty spaces? And, I guess they're creatures of the night, right? So it's to be expected.
Pardon me. Blacula actually will be a different beast in that it's, even though it's digital, it's a fully painted book. It's just me on the art. And it's not I love, like, one of my favorite things is ink. I love line art. I love how dramatic you can get with it. I love the horror aspect of it. But this, we wanted something special. We wanted it way more, I consider it more cinematic. So I wanted to do it in a full painted style. So I think you're actually going to see a level up in Black. Nice. We're both like kind of patting ourselves on the shoulder. Like we're very proud of Black. He's very pretty. And by very pretty, I mean pretty fucking bloody. Like, so it's
right on. I know when we had Rodney on, we talked about Zombie Love Studios and how he mentioned that you hated the name of it at first, I think. Now, is that something that you've grown to enjoy or at least like?
It is. I hate that man for being right so often. Because Killadelphia, even though I grew to like it, it took a lot of convincing for other people to like Killadelphia. And they were like, it seems almost a silly name for what this book is. And we're like, Hellboy is a silly name. But you hear it enough times, it's legit.
Right.
And so I hate that because it tends to be right more often than not. And so I was not a fan, and now I'm so used to it. I'm like, yeah, Zombie Love Studios. So he has a way about him to, So
I'm curious. There recently, I've been hearing a lot about artists and their work being dark, and a lot of media having criticism of artists that are quote dark. And I'm curious if you've encountered this, of when people see both your fine art and the comic books that you work on, if there's this expectation of who you are as a person as being this like dark gothic, like horror, like serial killer in disguise, and you're like, yeah, I'm a normal guy, like I just happen to draw like vampires. Because I feel like people can't distinguish between the art and like the person, and their expression may be on the dark side, but them not necessarily being like an evil person just because the art looks a certain way.
Right. I was either I was just reminded from my wife that my mother-in-law, when they first saw an exhibition of mine, was quite concerned, both about myself and her choice of mate. And so it's just like, it's is he okay? And it's like, and it's so funny. When I consider especially my fine art, I do get put into the dark category, but I consider artists like Chet Zar and these kinds of guys like dark. Like, these guys are painting monsters and they're painting things, coming out of the darkness. I tend to paint whenever I do paint, I tend to paint very large spatial paintings of loneliness. And being, and that kind of a thing. And so I'm not using dark colors. I'm not making bloody images. I actually don't do that kind of a thing with the fine art. But when it comes to subject matter, it just tends to be more introspective and deeper. And when you do something that makes people feel uncomfortable, you get called dark. And so I'll take it. So, and also I love dark. So, then you get to my comic book work, and then I get to live my fantasy of being a special effects artist and just put blood on everything. But the only thing I can kind of come up with is that I have a huge imagination. And subconsciously, I probably work through a whole lot of stuff that makes me able to be a happy-go-lucky dad. And the other, but when I'm working,
I've always felt that like the people that you have to worry about are the ones that appear more sanitized, that are, the tie is like perfectly straight. That everything is in its place, because there's a lot of pent-up aggression in that person that they're not expressing. Or, the human experience has ups and downs and light and darkness and all of that. And if someone tries to portray just the positive sunflowers and sunshine, there's something going on behind that. But
who do you know in this personally? Who do you know that has their shit fully together? No one. So if someone's coming off that way, like, oh, you're hiding something. There's something that's always way more attractive to me about honesty. Yeah. And I would describe that in my painting. I was like, I would just try to paint as honest as possible. If I started trying to get too flowery or too pretty with certain elements, I think, I would have to take a moment back and slap it away, start over. I'm like, no. Where, and kind of like recenter myself, get back to where I need to be, and then start over. But you can see honesty. You can see when people are faking it.
Yeah. I think I'm curious if you find that that's one of the difficult things as an artist, is not so much learning the technical aspect of being an artist, but the honesty with yourself and what you want to express, and finding something that is legitimate versus just creating pretty pictures to sell for commercial value. Is that something as an artist you feel is the most difficult part of it, or because you're a good artist that just comes to you naturally?
Rodney and my wife and several other people want to strangle me for this, but for up until just a couple of years ago, I was still a very self-conscious artist. And I felt there's a certain part of me that loves art, that wants to see figurative work be exaggerated and crazy and weird. But I kind of came up through learning from guys like Kent Williams and these other painters that were very figurative and realistic and that kind of a thing. And so I did fall into a place where for a good few years, especially when I started on Spawn, when I started on Killadelphia, I definitely felt as though I needed to exhibit what I assumed people were expecting. I need to make sure this isn't as dramatic as what Todd was doing, because that's not me. People expect this of me, so I want to do this as good as possible. And I enjoy kind of doing that, but at some point I started feeling unfulfilled. Just every time I would turn in an issue, I would be like, you could have pushed it. You could have been better. And finally at a place, probably just, and granted, it took way too long, but like, I'll take it whenever you get it, that I finally hit a place where I was just, I just kind of hit like a fuck it moment. And it was just like, why am I second guess? Mostly I think we have this fear of that if we cut loose in our art, then people will look at it and be like, oh, that guy can't draw. And now I'm like, oh, but I've got 24 years of a career. So I can cut loose. And if someone says that, I can point to 24 years, of Spawn and Hellboy and Killadelphia. And like, so I feel like I just kind of have enough behind me now. And if there's anything, I'm so excited about these next projects coming up because I'm just allowing myself to play more visually.
Cool.
Hopefully you see the style start changing more and more throughout, but I hope so because I want to experiment more. I think comics are brilliant, and I want to see what they can do.
Very cool. When you're creating your art or comic books, do you have to have a certain environment around you? Do you have to have it quiet? Do you blast some music? What's that like for you?
I have an outside office studio that I go to.
Nice.
I have 2 kids, so I need an outside thing. It is made to absolutely accommodate my crazy ass ADHD. So when you ask like the environment, I don't know. Depends on what I feel like that day. So the thing is, I have 3 very different workstations in my office. So it's both sitting, standing, and then a flat table to just kind of go nuts on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have earbuds, outside music. I have everything to satisfy whatever weirdness I'm going to come up with that day.
Nice.
Like, oh, I want to stand up, but I don't want to listen to music in my ear. I got that covered. But essentially, like it just made it sound like I'm an insane person. Well, 3 different work areas for one person. But for the most part, I stand and I have some kind of, depending on the project, I have some kind of metal playing. So with the comics, it's always metal.
Okay.
With painting, it always seems to be like Miles Davis and stuff like that. A lot of blues.
Nice.
But for comics, they all seem to be crazy lately, and so Slipknot seems to be the choice.
So you have like your comic book creation playlist of all the metal music that you like. I
do.
Nice.
I do. It's just called Get to Work.
Get to work. Hey, it works for me.
A lot of times I find that I go back to like musicians or bands that I listened to when I was like in college, first couple years in college or late high school. And I just kind of listen to that nonstop. So I almost have to force myself to discover new artists so that, I can hear new stuff. Is there anyone new that's kind of inspiring to you or someone that's like you're really digging right now as far as music is concerned?
Oh, that's cruel. Now I'm going to feel like you just described me and then you're like, do you know it? No, I don't.
We're all in the same boat then, I think, because I do the same thing. I find it hard to find new musicians. Like you were mentioning The Crow, and like The Crow soundtrack is like one of my favorite soundtracks ever.
Yeah. What's worse is I'm going to be on an old man pedestal for a moment and be like, I don't think they make music the same way. And I'm going to like, this isn't I know music people. I have Grammy nominated friends, and they will tell you that music is not what we got in like the 90s and early, that said, like nostalgia plays too heavy a role in some of it. So if I listen to it while I'm working, I just want to stop and just listen to or listen to Pearl Jam. If Primus comes on, I'm not going to work. I'm just going to sit there and listen to Les Claypool be insane. But so I have a very like Delta Blues are great playlists for painting. I like a lot of sound, a lot of movie scores.
Okay.
Anything to set the mood. But as far as enjoyment in the car, yeah, it's like the Crow soundtrack. All the fun '90s.
All the good stuff. Yeah, that's very true. So Gabe mentioned music. What about any other medium that maybe you're not creating at the time and you want to enjoy yourself relaxing? Is there any kind of like movie genres? You mentioned horror movies earlier. Do you find yourself gravitating still to horror movies? Or is there anything in particular you like currently out there?
I love horror movies. At some point, I know I'm going to draw comics until I can't anymore. But I would love, when I am taking breaks, I would love to direct and get behind actually making these. I grew up with them. I love them. And now, of course, I'm going to fight to find one that's actually kind of gotten me lately, but there's not. Well, I found myself going back to the old ones again.
Very true. I think though, recently there's been like a resurgence with really good horror movies out there, like Barbarian and stuff like that, which just like they take it to that next level that sometimes was often in the recent past been just not there.
Yeah.
So,
I'm torn. I'm waiting. I know I haven't seen Smile yet. And I thought It Follows was interesting. Barbarian, I fell out of Barbarian pretty quick just from storytelling.
Yeah, I know.
There were too many, like, nobody would do that at the beginning. But I haven't seen one that's really just, had me all the way through, like back in the day. So,
right on.
But I've heard good things like Smile and things like that. I'm up for it. I'll always watch them. But I haven't been thrilled with like I don't know if this just punishes me or not or whatever. But I thought the last couple of Halloweens didn't really live up to what they could have been. I just haven't been blown away with horror. Like I tend to like my most recent things. I tend to keep going back to the 2000s of like the remake of Dawn of the Dead. I thought that was brilliant. And that was when they were doing the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I was like, those first offs were great.
Yeah.
And I just haven't had anything that's really just like had me tense the whole way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I view horror movies. I enjoy them as movies, but I don't get scared or tensed up by them.
Yeah. They gotta let me direct a couple. See if I can.
There you go. I agree. Let's get you directing some horror films. I want to see those.
I love it.
We just recently reviewed. It's kind of an older movie. Have you heard of Neon Demon?
No.
No. It's not necessarily I wouldn't consider it a great horror film, but it's a very visually interesting film. And it does take place in LA. Talks kind of a metaphor for, Hollywood and the fashion industry and how people kind of get, chewed up and spit out in a way. But really, really interesting visuals. You can almost watch it on mute in a way because the visuals are very interesting.
That's true. You could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a really interesting movie. It's like, Danny was saying, not something that you're necessarily going to be scared of, but just a beautiful movie visually. So I don't know, maybe that's a recommendation for me. If you want to check out something relatively new, when it comes to horror movies, I tend to like sort of the old where it's like horror / comedy. It's kind of cheesy, kind of makes you laugh at some point. Then there's some parts of my favorite all time is Return of the Living Dead. Classic for me.
Like, I'm sure they existed before that. It felt like that thing that just created a genre of comedy horror. And the comedy was really dark comedy. It wasn't really like a slapsticky. Yeah. It was just, that movie. Yeah, you're right. Like I laugh and like there are moments it scares the hell out of me, which also, by the way, first running zombies, even though 28 days later gets all the credit for it. There's this parking lot scene where you see these zombies trucking it after those kids. First running. And I remember that from the start because it scared the hell out of me. I'm like, they're running. Like that was, and the shot was just this big wide parking lot thing where you just see these guys running down this thing, and then this pile of zombies trucking it. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and they had they were semi-intelligent. Like there was the ones that get on the walkie-talkie, like send more cops or whatever. and the one that's on the table that's like talking about why she likes to eat brains. It's a great movie. I love that movie.
It's incredible. And then they spoof themselves a little bit more on the second one, where they really go for the brains and all of that kind of jazz. But I remember in the second one, they spoofed that send more cops. By then they stopped and asked the zombie who the president was. He was like, Truman? Like, nobody's coming.
That's great.
But those were a great series of movies.
I see. Oh, go ahead.
My favorite of all time is my favorite movie, period, is Jacob's Ladder, which has the emotional stuff and the horror, which is everything I want to do.
That movie was great. I remember watching that for the first time, and the twist at the end, it just blew me away.
Yeah, I was just what was it, like 18 or 19, and it was just this perfect sponge, and it just and it still holds up. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So I want to just ask real quick about your the artwork you did for comic books that relate for films. I see you did Pan's Labyrinth, Predators, Mad Max. Now, how was that translating it from like a movie cinema to a comic book of a printed form? How was that like for you? That was being a traditional artist. It was almost like it was like pulling teeth. Like I wanted to participate in these motion comics. And then it was just like reinventing the wheel each time. I had to like do a layer of a guy and then a thing. So it wound up being more arduous because I wanted to do an amazing motion comic. It's ironic, I haven't done one since I've gone digital, which I could actually just do them. But that's when I was asked to do Pan's Labyrinth. That was the first one ever. I was like, and I didn't do a great motion comic, but I did do some cool drawings. But I did the story of the Pale Man. So they sent me a DVD of the just that scene, and it was unfinished. And so I'm like, let's just see what this movie is going to be. And it was the Pale Man. I was like, what is this movie? He just puts at this point, none of this has been released. And so I'm watching him put the eyes in his hands. I'm like, you're kidding me. And I was just, and then it was over. I'm like, how am I supposed to draw this? It was incredible. It was a great challenge, but I was just, so then I became a Del Toro fan from that point. Yeah.
I'd never really heard of him. And then I went straight to Devil's Backbone.
Oh, nice.
And it was just, man.
Have you seen any of his Cabinet of Curiosities that he produced or the new Pinocchio film yet?
I'm excited to see Pinocchio.
Yeah.
I liked some of the Curiosities. I thought some of the pacing was a little weird. But yeah. But I'm not going to just sit here and just like, shh.
No, we're not giving any fodder there.
Direct asshole.
Looking into your work, I saw that you've done Patreon and you've opened up conversations with other artists where you talk about art and maybe the tools that you use and things of that nature. What made you want to be kind of like an open book and share? Because a lot of artists don't like talking about their process and the tools they use or what they use for reference. Why did you choose to be kind of not a gatekeeper and kind of open yourself up to other artists?
That's awesome. I honestly hadn't even considered it being that. That's cool. I mean, it's never been. I'm self-taught, I guess. Maybe that's it. Like I genuinely had to rely on the kindness of strangers. and I was, and I was fortunate enough to share studios with artists like Kate Williams, and I learned everything. And because I guess I learned from him, I guess I'm just more excited. If someone wants to know what kind of pen it is or that kind of thing, means they're going to go home and try it. And maybe, I feel like anybody who's scared or who's a gatekeeper really feels that what they do can be copied pretty easily.
True.
I've hired numerous assistants to help me ink backgrounds. And the one nice thing I can say about myself is that apparently it's hard to do what I do. So it's taken a lot of it. I'm sitting here like just ink the background like I do, like here. And then I get something back and I was like, that's not. And then I was told, they're like, it's not easy to do because I jump back and forth between brushes. I do a lot of push and pull. I love jumping in. And I did the same thing with ink. I do it with digital. I did the same thing with ink. I would go in heavy with spatter or whatever kind of color, and then I would start pulling it back out with white. My hands would just be covered in it by the time I was done. Because I even try to attempt that digitally because for me, art is just this thing where you just want to get in it.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to end just with what can our listeners and your fans look forward to? What releases you have? What work are you currently working on? So we can be sure to go check it out and buy it.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me see. I have a Midnight Suns card set that's coming out through Upper Deck.
Nice.
It was fun to paint all of those guys. I've gotten to do Marvel characters on the periphery, so it's I've done for my Marvel, I did Marvel zombies, and so I'm like, oh yeah, I did Marvel, I'm good. Killadelphia, the new issue of the new arc comes out I think 2 days after Christmas. The new arc is incredible. It's really incredible. Rodney is just going to blow everybody's minds. Next month is Blacula. Blacula will be on the stands everywhere. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait for you guys to see it. And then summer is looking like I'll be bringing back Empty Zone, potentially through Image still. Whole new story arcs that are designed for at least 3 arcs that I'm just excited as hell to do. So a whole lot of comics. I'm going to draw and write. And I'll be writing a few scripts for other artists this year. It'll be my first time.
Very cool.
I realize some of these ideas I have in my pocket, I'm never going to get to. And I think they're cool enough they should exist. So yeah, we're giving it a shot, just jumping in the writer's seat.
Right on. Are you a convention guy? Do you do the Comic Cons and the circuit?
I don't as much. I enjoy being here, and really at this point I just like making comics, and so I try to do it as much as I can. But next year will be new projects, so I'll be at cons next year.
Nice.
I'm not sure, probably I would say roughly 5. I don't want to do more than that, but I really am a homebody. I really prefer to just make the work. But I'll be promoting a lot, and I want to push a lot, and it's truly like it's so neat to just see people. So yeah, so I take a couple of years off, like I have, and now it'll be really fun to kind of see fans and other artists and writers again.
Nice.
Right on.
So in the meantime, people can find you on Instagram. Are you on also Twitter as well?
I am the same. Might as well just follow me on Instagram. On Twitter, I tend to get a little mouthy with politics. But it's the same handle, Jason Shawn Alex. That's on Twitter and Instagram. And I believe I don't know if Hive died, but I have an account on there as well if you wanted to see some art.
And you can go visit to your website, studiojsa.com, and you can purchase some of your material, art, prints, and merchandise from there too. So I want to promote that for you.
You are better at this than I am, I think.
So very cool. Well, Jason, thank you again for taking some time to talk to us today about your art and your processes and your music that you enjoy, like us, the old stuff.
Nice.
So, we thank you very much for your time. We very much appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This was amazing. This was really fun.
Well, that was a great conversation. Super cool guy. Great artist. Definitely check out his work, Killadelphia. Look out for Blacula next month.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely be checking it out. Love vampires. Love that it's with it, like with people of color. I think that's oftentimes you don't see a lot of horror with representation like that. So that's something that I really look forward to. And his fine artwork is amazing as well. If you're not familiar with his paintings, definitely go check it out. I went to his website and checked out some of his exhibitions that he's had, and really, really cool stuff, really inspiring, really original, and in his words, really honest, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the fact that him, like us, gravitate back to the music of our early or late teens, when it was actually good music. So I'm glad that we're not alone in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it works out because I feel like I'm still 19 and I haven't changed other than older, but I still feel the same. Like I'm still wearing Doc Martens as we speak. So yeah, I haven't changed since 1998.
Hey, if that's who you are, nothing wrong with that.
Except needing glasses.
Glasses and maybe blue hair, but who's looking?
Yeah. So yeah, great conversation. Super grateful. Once again, thank you to Jason. And as far as anything else you got cooking that our listeners should be looking out for? Any recommendations?
Not recommendations per se, but we do have a poll going right now where you can submit your favorite holiday movie, Christmas movie, anti-Christmas movie. It's a link on all of our social medias where you can go and just submit your name and just the movies that you like. And our next episode, which will be our final episode of 2022, and we're going to go ahead and just, go over those and see what you guys think, what you guys like, don't like, whatnot. Yeah. I'm plugging that right now.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I'll give you a hint. I'm probably going to have an anti-Christmas as my favorite. Shocker for anyone that knows me or listens to the podcast. But, so that's my hint. So look for all the great anti-Christmas movies out there.
I will say this though, one recommendation. It is a Christmas movie. It is with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell and Octavia Spencer, I think, on Apple Plus TV called Spirited. It is a musical, just to warn you, but it is really good. It's a whole different take on the Christmas Carol story. So I highly recommend. I watched it. I forgot to mention it last week. So Spirited, go watch it. Maybe it'll make your list.
Yeah. Once you're done with this episode, which if you're hearing this, you have just listened to the whole episode. So definitely then now you can turn off YouTube, get off of Apple or Spotify, wherever you're listening to us, and go check that out.
There you go. All right.
All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of PopCultX. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you.
See you, everyone.